Hey guys, this is Stephanie Hamley with Hamley Bake Shoppe. Today I'm in my kitchen to show you some of our favorite recipes that we use at the shop. On this episode, I'm going to teach you how to fill and crumb coat a cake. In the description box below is listed all the equipment and supplies that you'll need, along with any helpful tips and tricks to help make this a success. If you have any questions about this episode or suggestions for the next, please comment below and we'd love to chat with you. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. So last episode we baked our chocolate cake. After it was baked, we covered it in saran wrap and then stuck it in the freezer. So fast forward to the next day, we are going to level our cake, fill it, and crumb coat it. It's best if your cake is still cold, I should say. A lot of people want to try to cut their cake and do all this in one day. And you can if you're pressed for time. The only problem is the fact that you're going to have a lot more crumbs in your cake. This is our parchment circle. We're just going to take this off. Making a mess. Okay, so the first step is to level our cake. We're about to get started. What I wanted to show you was the knives that we can use. So this is just a normal kitchen bread knife. This is a larger bread knife or a cake knife. And then this is what we use at the shop. It's an Agbay. It is amazing. So basically you have this really sharp, extremely sharp blade, but you can adjust the height of your cuts based on your desires. So usually I'll figure out about how tall my cake is, and then I want to try to do about half of that. So I'll set my blade to the perfect height. So I'm going to set these aside. And then basically with this, and we normally use gloves, we're just going to cut this right on through. And you have to be extremely careful because I'm telling you, these knives are sharp. So you know how normally when you take your cake out of the oven, it's got that hump and you're like, oh God, what do I do with the hump? So after you level one side, then set your knife and just basically cut that hump off. We want our cake to be as flat as we can. And then all this left over, now it's not perfect, but we can still work with it. All this, you can save and make cake pops with it, any type of little dirt cake, anything like that. I'm gonna throw that away because I will eat it all. So next up is our turntable. This is an Ateco. It has a really nice gliding motion. It's one of my favorites. I've tried some of the less expensive versions and they're good if that's all you have, but if you have a little bit of extra money laying around and you want something that's really nice that's gonna last you for a long time, get one of these. And what we'll do is we'll just get one of those little sticky pads. I call them sticky pads, and that just keeps it from sliding around while you're working. So we're going to take our turntable. Now there's a new method that I'm going to show you, and this is using acrylic discs. If you don't have acrylic discs, you can always use just a cardboard cake circle. So the cardboard cake circle is going to be just a touch bigger than my baked cake, which is what we want. And then this is actually a little bit larger than our cake circle. And the reason we're going to do this is going to give us really nice sharp edges. So all those beautiful pictures you see on Instagram and Pinterest, that's what we're going to work with today. So to get started, I'm gonna add just a touch of buttercream to my disc. So if you're using your cake circle, you're gonna do the exact same thing. So I'm gonna take my first layer, and you wanna get it as close to the middle as you can. So making sure everybody is got the same space from the edges. And then we're gonna take our ice cream scoop, disher, however you wanna call it. It is the greatest thing on earth. And then we're gonna have an offset spatula. Some people like the straight ones. It's very difficult for me to use that, but use whatever you're more comfortable with, and however you hold it is just really dependent on what you're taught. If you weren't taught anything, then you're just gonna have to play around with it a little bit and see what feels more comfortable to you. So today we're gonna use American buttercream, and we did that in our previous episode. And if you want to learn how to make that, you can just click the link down here. We'll attach all that stuff so that you have everything right there at your fingertips. So the next step is we're gonna put icing on our cake. So this is an 8-inch, and for this we're gonna do 2 scoops of icing. And then we're gonna take our spatula and just with like a back and forth motion, we're just gonna push it to the edge. And you're just gonna keep kind of turning and just smoothing, and you want it to get to the edge. It can look rough. We're gonna make that look really pretty. Okay, and then we're gonna add our next layer. And again, you just wanna make sure that everything is to the sides. Now, if you want more icing in the middle, you can. We're gonna add some Oreos to this cake, so it's gonna be kind of thick. But again, the same amount of icing, and you can always add another plop if you feel like, oh, you know what, this really isn't as thick as I would like it to be. And we're just gonna keep smoothing. And having the offset really does kind of help, so you're not, digging your hand into the cake or anything like that. And also, some people use these really big ones. I just can't function with a big offset spatula. So little is better for me. I feel like I have a little bit more control. So we're just gonna take our cookies. We are just going to fill this little thing up. This is our cake, we can do what we want. Now, we're gonna have to stick a little bit more icing on top, just so our next layer has something to stick to. So, not a lot, just a little bit. Okay, so this cake, we're gonna take the top and flip it upside down. Okay, and again, we're just gonna make sure everything is, we don't want our cake doing like this, because it'll make it harder to ice. And then we're just gonna give it a little press. And then we're gonna do a couple more scoops. And again, I'm pushing and like doing this. And sometimes if you just want to hold the spatula and then just turn the thing, as you can see, I'm kind of using it at an angle. If trying to push the icing to the side of the cake is giving you anxiety problems, then just hold it lightly and just move the turntable. So this is the cut side, and then this was the bottom. The bottom is now going to be the top. And again, we want to make sure that our cake is nice and level. We don't have it wonky. And then the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to just take 2 more plops, and then we're going to push . Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take a parchment circle, cut exactly to length of our acrylic disc. Actually, it's just a little bit shorter, which is fine. So we're gonna put that right down in the middle. And then we're just gonna kind of rub that. And then we're gonna stick our disc right on top. Now, if you have one of these, this is good. Or if you have a ruler, anything like that. And basically, we're just gonna make sure that our disc is touching not only the bottom of our disc, but the top of it. This is perfect. So the next step is the crumb coat. So we'll be right back, and then we're gonna show you how to do the rest of this. Okay guys, so we're back. I had to get a little bit more icing. So now we are going to do a crumb coat. So what is a crumb coat? Basically, we want any crumbs at all to get trapped into this next layer of icing, so that when we do our final coat, it's nice and pretty. There's no little crumbs, you know, unless that's the look that you want to go for. But if you're trying to make this for your family and friends and you want to really, you know, stand out against Sister Sally next door, then this is the key. So the same icing that we've been using to fill, we're going to put a layer on the outside. So there's also an upside down method, which we'll show in another video. But this is basically the same type of concept, except that we're not flipping it upside down. So we're gonna take our discs, and they should be nice and sturdy. And the little parchment circle that we have on top, that's just gonna help us be able to take our circle off without having to cut it and do all this weird stuff and make it really difficult. So we're gonna take our icing. So I've got a good glob, and this is the nice thing about American. It's thick and it holds its shape, and it has a nice crust on it, so it lets you really do a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna take my spatula and I'm going to basically push it and then like slide up on the disc. So I want to fill all of my little gaps, and this will also help hold my disc in place. So I'm not looking for pretty, I'm looking for let's add icing and build a layer. So I'm just gonna smooth this. Uh-oh, got a little shifting. Now one thing you can do is put just a little plop of icing on your parchment paper if it does shift a little bit. But I'm just gonna keep smoothing this, and then we're gonna add some more icing to this layer. So the same concept, and we're just trying to fill in any gaps that we can. So just push that icing in to all those crevices. And I like to have a bowl that's just for my crumb coat. That way if I get any icing in the bowl, then it's not gonna be in my final product. So again, I'm just pushing that icing into all those crevices. So if you have a spot like here where there's still a gap, just bring that around. And you really don't see a lot of crumbs. I've done a pretty good job on my crumb coat. But normally if you have, you know, just a really crummy cake, this really helps. But keeping it refrigerated and having it rest in the freezer overnight really does help with those crumbs. So the next thing is I kind of just want to smooth where I'm at right now. So again, I'm not looking for perfection, I'm just looking for some progress. So we just want to make sure all the gaps are filled in, and then we're going to let this chill in the fridge for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to add our next coat. The best thing to do is if you have a bench scraper, this is one, and we're going to link all these items. And then this is another one that's got a nice little handle on it. This is my favorite, so this is the one I'm going to use. It's got like a little beveled edge. So I'm going to put my scraper, we're going to push it right up against the acrylic discs. So my spatula or my smoother is laying flat on the surface of my board or of my turntable. So I'm not holding it like this, I'm not holding it like this, I'm holding it flat against this. So basically I'm gonna just move the turntable and let it do the scraping. Now, if you do have one of the little sticky pads, sometimes it'll catch, so that can be a frustration. So if you don't want to use that, you don't have to, but it really does help when you're icing. So just keep in mind that might be a problem, but nothing that you can't overcome. Okay, so I'm gonna just scrape that off. Put it back in my bowl. Get icing on my shoe. Okay, so we're gonna pop this in the fridge for about 30 minutes or so, and then we're gonna show you the next step. Thank you so much for showing up today. We really do appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. If you have a second, we'd love for you to comment below any questions or comments that you have. We'd love for you to like and share and subscribe to our channel as well. We, again, thank you so much for showing up today. Until next time, bake something sweet.